Welcome to the Doomscroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Hanna, and my co-host for this week, Iris Hsu, are covering some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Hanna, and this week we're talking nuclear power, that is, specifically the controversial issue that is nuclear power in Taiwan, but also nuclear weapons, and whether the three biggest nuclear-armed nations in the world might be willing to get rid of their warheads. It's a touchy subject, to be sure. One might even say radioactive. I also want to give Iris a chance to share her thoughts about the recent cabinet reshuffle that took place here in Taiwan. How's your summer been, Iris?
It's been good. Very, very election heavy.
Election heavy. So a lot of work you're doing, I guess, is another way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you surviving this last bit of heat before we transition to fall?
I mean, I think the heat is more tolerable than some of the political issues that we're going to talk about.
The hot climate is more tolerable than the political climate. Great theme for the episode. I want to hit the ground running with what I understand to be a particularly divisive topic in Taiwan, and that is nuclear power. On August 23rd, the Taiwanese public went to the polls to vote on a referendum pushing to open Taiwan's nuclear plant, the Manshan reactor. Although 4.3 million people voted in favor of the plant's reopening, greatly outnumbering the 1.5 million who voted against it, it didn't meet the legal threshold of about 5 million yes votes to actually pass. Therefore, the nuclear power plant shall remain closed. The Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, were the ones who proposed the referendum earlier this year with support from the Kuomintang, or KMT. They did so making the case that Taiwan needs its own source of energy here at home, rather than relying almost entirely on imported sources. And I can't really fault that logic. However, there are obviously a lot of fears and concerns surrounding the use of nuclear power as well. This actually came up in my discussion with former RTI host turned Taiwan Plus business and tech reporter Chris Gorin last week within the context of artificial intelligence. A great big, basically huge amount of energy is needed to power the kind of AI revolution that Taiwan is looking to create. Even NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was recently cited stating his support for nuclear power, which just a couple weeks ago during his third visit to Taiwan this year he called, quote, an excellent option, unquote, for powering Taiwan's first AI factory. NVIDIA and Foxconn are working together to build the factory in question. This is from our own reporting here at RTI. But that's easy to say, isn't it, that nuclear is an excellent option when you're not actually based anywhere near the spot a plant is going to be located or where the nuclear waste is going to be dumped. Chris expressed his opinion last week that Taiwan is just forestalling the inevitable when it comes to nuclear power, and that sooner or later we're going to have to turn to nuclear in order to meet our energy needs. Would you agree, Iris, or do you have another point of view?
I think I completely disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
So, to begin with, I think the president, after the referendum, although it did not pass the 1/4 threshold, he did say that he's going to reopen the case and ask Thai Power to do like an environmental check and safety check
on the plant, right?
On the plant.
Okay.
Now, all of the anti-nuclear organizations are saying this is the lowest turnout of all of the referendum regarding nuclear. Yeah.
Okay.
So even my family, actually all of my family members, we are anti-nuclear.
Okay.
But majority of us did not go to vote, thinking if we don't show up, that is saying something.
Okay.
So we didn't go to the poll and vote. I disagree. So I find it to be really counterintuitive for the administration to come out and say, okay, so the public has spoken. Yes, the public has spoken, basically, while this is the lowest turnout for referendum. The anti-nuclear organizations have come out to say that this has been the referendum that has the lowest turnout rate since 2017, when the amendment of the Referendum Act was passed. But that doesn't mean that the people that didn't turn up to vote agree with reopening or even considering reopening the power plant.
Can I ask why you strongly disagree that nuclear power is inevitable?
For sure. Where are you going to store the nuclear waste?
I'm glad you hit upon that because I think that's really important. So while preparing this episode, I actually asked a few of my Taiwanese friends a similar question. A couple of the people I asked were ambivalent or just not educated enough on the topic, but the others more or less fell into two categories. One included all the people who were hesitant about and fearful of nuclear power, citing issues such as Taiwan's size and our lack of out-of-the-way space to dump waste. The other category included everyone who basically viewed it as a necessary evil, and that if Taiwan is to have any hope of achieving its technological goals, then it's going to have to happen sooner or later. Interestingly, the only person I talked to who leaned very strongly one way on the issue was pro-nuclear. And she basically made the argument to me that, well, Switzerland is a tiny country too, and it uses a lot of nuclear power without any issues. Now, I'm not necessarily anti-nuclear, but my immediate reaction to this was, well, apart from size, it seems like comparing apples to oranges. But the most important question I had that she didn't seem to have an answer for was, what do we do with the waste? And when I looked up what Switzerland does with the waste, I discovered they store it in the mountains and they plan to permanently dispose of it deep underground. My understanding is that we dumped ours. Back when Taiwan used nuclear power, we dumped our waste out on Orchid Island, which is pretty messed up considering the island is home to a majority indigenous population who had no say in the decision to put a storage facility storing something like 100,000 barrels of radioactive waste in their home. So realistically, what are our options here for nuclear waste storage? Are there any?
I don't think there are any.
Okay. And this is why you are anti-nuclear. It hinges on this?
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
And to, as you said, achieve technological goals. At what cost? I don't think the Orchid Islands people had the say when the KMT administration decided to dump their nuclear waste on their island.
No, they didn't. I looked this up, actually, and they have been probably the most vocally against nuclear because, obviously, they're suffering the most.
And also, after seeing what happened to Japan back in, 2011,
2011.
we are, up until today, the people in the vicinity of Japan.
The Fukushima nuclear accident, yeah.
Yeah, we are still dealing with the consequences, the outcome of that disaster. How are people able to look at that in the past and said, yeah, sure, we can build another one, and then, God forbid, that earthquake struck and then tsunami struck, and it better not happen in summer because there's a chance of us
Typhoon.
being under typhoon. Yeah.
That is a really good point. In my research on this, I saw that the Fukushima nuclear accident really reinvigorated the debate about nuclear power in Taiwan. I was in the United States at the time in the middle of my undergraduate degree, but I noticed that a couple of the Taiwanese millennials I talked to who were coming of age and becoming more politically conscious during the 2010s, they all tended to lean anti-nuclear, like you do. So I'm curious, what was the political climate like at the time? Did that protest activity have anything to do with you forming the opinion you hold today?
I think it does. I remember seeing these rallies.
Yeah.
At a very young age too. And also during the building of the number 4 nuclear power plants, there were so many mishandling when it comes to building that nuclear power plant that I genuinely don't have any confidence.
I think there is understandably a lot of distrust in the government in this regard, especially because they weren't exactly transparent in their dealings with Orchid Island, first of all. And there's also this idea that I heard from a couple of the people I spoke to, this idea that if even the Japanese, who are known for being very meticulous in just about everything they do, if they couldn't even run a power plant without experiencing a disaster, what makes us think we could do any better in Taiwan, where we don't even construct buildings to code sometimes, Do you think this is a valid concern in terms of Taiwanese culture and our way of doing things?
The biggest reason why I am anti-nuclear is not because that I don't trust the building techniques or the construction capabilities of Taiwan. Is that we simply don't have the time nor the space to take any risks when bad things happen.
Yeah.
And that, at the end of the day, you're going to be sacrificing a small group of people's well-being by storing nuclear waste close to them.
Yeah, right in their neighborhood. I'm glad you had an opposing opinion for us because, like I said, the one person I talked to who had a strong opinion was for it. And I found that kind of surprising. How are we going to solve the energy need concern, though? Because Taiwan's energy needs are increasing basically exponentially. So what is the solution for that, if not nuclear?
I know that we are looking at green energy, but people feel very apprehensive about it because it usually comes with a lot of corruption. This is the problem that the administration need to figure out, right? Instead of going to a unrepresentative referendum result and saying that they're going to reconsider it to recheck the safety of nuclear power plant, I think they should be really looking to other resources.
They should be investing that energy that they're putting into nuclear to
more diverse
energy.
Yeah, to not just clean energy, but also all kinds of methods, I guess.
Okay. I think it's worth noting that even the most pro-nuclear person is probably not going to want to live next door to a power plant or a nuclear waste dump. And Taiwan being so small, it would be like we all live next door to it.
Yeah, and personally, I don't think this is a zero-sum game. And I believe that there are other resources that we can explore. Taiwan is so rich sometimes, but these debates often get polarized into like you gotta choose either. I don't believe
there is a third way.
Yeah.
You think there's a third way? Okay.
I just don't believe that nuclear is the only way that is going to solve our energy shortage.
While nuclear power can be a thorny topic, the matter of nuclear disarmament is, I think, pretty cut and dry. Obviously, the vast majority of us would prefer to live in a world without nuclear weapons. The problem is, nobody who has a bunch of nukes right now wants to be the first to get rid of them. So, I don't have very much faith in United States President Donald Trump's abilities as a diplomat. Listeners know I'm not a big fan of him, but I think even the more sensible contingent of Trump supporters can admit that he is not the best at international relations. And the fact is, he has largely failed to deliver on his peacemaker and unifier campaign promises. Overall, Trump's interactions with other world leaders have ranged from bizarre to ineffectual to sometimes just rude. So my expectations are pretty low on this deal that he's trying to broker between the U.S., Russia, and China on nuclear disarmament. Per Reuters, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry already declined last Wednesday, calling the request unreasonable and unrealistic. The START treaty between the U.S. and Russia is set to expire in February 2026, but so far, negotiations between Moscow and Washington have made no progress. Trump wants to turn this bilateral negotiation into a trilateral negotiation by bringing China to the table, but that is looking more and more like a far-off dream. So I remember working on a video for RTI back in June about how China is expanding their nuclear arsenal at the fastest rate in the world right now, and by 2030 they could match the US and Russia in terms of nuclear capabilities. To be clear, they're not the only ones building more warheads. Almost all 9 of the world's countries with nuclear weapons are working to expand and upgrade their nuclear arsenals. But China is doing it a lot faster than everyone else, adding 100 new nuclear warheads to their arsenal every year. Ironically, Beijing also deflected by saying, oh, the two countries with the largest nuclear arsenals, that is, the US and Russia, should focus on their treaty. It has nothing to do with us. Meanwhile, they're on track to catch up with them in the next few years. Go figure. Do you think we are looking at the possibility of another arms race? Or do you think it's just another chess piece in the game that all these world leaders play?
I think we've always been in an arms race, to be
Always.
honest. Yeah.
Even though disarmament has been occurring gradually since the Cold War?
Yes. I think this is an uphill battle for a lot of disarmament organization.
Okay.
Because all these treaties, the START treaties, the New START treaties, the Iran deal, they all rely on both sides or more sides to act on good faith. Now, with the political climate like this and today's new order, I don't think that is possible in any circumstances. And also, to be fair, going back to U.S. President Donald Trump, I have to say, not just him, but all of the U.S. presidents have cuddled up with authoritarian regimes.
When it comes to this matter, or you mean
in general? In general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
obviously, I heard this from Mehdi Hassan. He said something along the line of seeing Trump and J.D. Vance berating Zelensky in the White House. You will never see him dare to do that to Xi Jinping.
Oh, yeah.
Or Putin.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And going back to warheads and nuclear deterrence, when it comes to nuclear deterrence, what it matters is that you need to let people know how many warheads you have. There's no point of building them and not letting people know. That defeats the purpose of deterrence.
Sure, yeah.
So how are you going to convince all these countries it is in your best interest to not produce more warheads when there are so many conflicts going on?
Yeah.
Even if you bring China to sign the treaty, how are you going to follow through that they did comply?
Yeah, how do you enforce? Because it is based on good faith, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no enforcement mechanism when it comes to any kinds of treaty, to be honest. And the UN's old world order, although I'm not happy or content with it in any way, given that we're not a member, those guardrails have fallen apart. So we really don't have any overhang for any of these countries to follow through on disarmament. And seeing what happens to Ukraine during the Budapest Memorandum, where they voluntarily gave up their nuclear warheads. If I remember correctly, both UK, US, and Russia came out and said that they're going to make sure that Ukraine's sovereignty and safety remain intact.
And now look where we are.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up our conversation, Iris has a lot to say about Taiwan's cabinet reshuffle, so I'm just going to let her rip.
And the list of the new cabinet members came out, and there's not one woman. And to begin with, there's only 5 women of all the 34 members.
That is a pathetic ratio.
Exactly. That's less than 1/6. I think what bothers me the most is that the Minister of Education offered his resignation, yet President asked him to stay on. There were 2 big scandals happening in the past few months.
With the Department of Education?
With the Department of Education. The first one is that students or student athletes at NTNU, the National Taiwan Normal University, were forced to draw blood, involuntarily give their blood out for professors and their coaches' research projects. And they were forced to draw blood 3 times a day, sometimes 18 days straight in a row.
That's creepy.
Yes, involuntarily. And this project has been going on for 7 years. But they are never told what their blood is for.
How is that legal? That is freaky.
Yes. What's even worse is that it's been going on for 7 years. And they never dare to say no because they felt the pressure coming from the coach.
Did the Ministry of Education step in at any point?
I think they stepped in when the case first came to light in April. But 3 months passed, it's cricket. And then in July, the student came out again And all of a sudden, the Ministry of Education became actively involved in this case and asking the NTNU to reopen this case and immediately suspend the teachers. Now, that case is not the only scandal. There's another one that has been going on for more than 2 years, which is a sexual harassment suit that happens at NTU, National Taiwan University, where a PhD student was sexually harassed by her RA at a dorm. It's sexual assault, plus the RA put a camera in her room.
Ew.
And guess what? The NTU found the RA not guilty of any of the crimes. Because even when they saw the camera, they were like, oh, well, it's not connected to the school Wi-Fi, so that means it's not in use.
That doesn't mean anything. They could use something else entirely.
Yes, and they yelled at the victim to get out of their office. Now, this is the gender equality office that we are talking about.
It couldn't be more ironic.
Oh, the story even goes crazier. A couple months later, the deputy minister of education came out revealing her name.
Oh, God.
On Facebook. How do I explain this?
A huge breach of privacy, isn't it?
Yeah. So this student, initially she was like, how is it that it's so difficult for me to seek justice, basically, and then protect other students from exposing to this specific RA? And then she found out that her advising professor decided to retire. And then I think the professor told her that, sorry, I have to retire because I felt the pressure coming from somewhere. And then the more she looked into it, she found out that the entire ministry is somehow involved in her case. And then this deputy minister knew her name as well as her professor. So she called him out. She was like, hey, why is it that my professor retired because of some outside pressure? And why do you know the case?
And did he respond?
He did, publicly on Facebook. Screenshots of conversations between him and the professor, and somehow leaking the student's name in those chats.
Oh my God.
So after this whole case, she asked the deputy minister of education to take down the post because her personal information is in there. That deputy minister refused, did not take down the post for like a month. 7 female DPP legislators demanded that the Ministry of Education look into the case of this deputy minister exposing personal information of the victim. And they found him not guilty of violating the Gender Equality Act.
What would violate it if this doesn't violate it? You know?
I am not happy with the gender inequality in the cabinet members number to begin with. And a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, this is like DEI. You're basically having a quota of women. No, what I'm asking for is not a quota. I'm asking for representation because these male ministers don't seem to have an idea of what they have done wrong.
They don't know how to handle the case at all, clearly.
No, and it is telling me that first, you don't care about the students. You clearly don't care about the female students. The cases are so emblematic of how clueless they are when it comes to gender equality.
Yeah, men can be very obtuse when it comes to what women experience. It's not something you can teach nor expect them to understand.
No. You know, at the end of the day, I think what they don't understand is do no harm when you're trying to care about a student, especially a victim. But in the end, it looks more like a self-serving
act. He's just trying to save his own skin.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Iris, for sharing your piece. That's it for today's news report. A quick reminder that you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode. I'm Hanna Belinsky.
I'm Iris Xu.
Thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling and touch grass. We'll see you next week.